Hello, I'm Murray Walker, and welcome to Formula One's most dramatic title deciders. This year's championship's building up to a thrilling climax between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. We've seen a season full of drama, with their rivalry being fought out to the bitter end at the final race in Abu Dhabi. Now, I've covered Grand Prix racing for more than 50 years, and I've seen so many thrilling battles go down to the wire. And today I'm at the superb McLaren Technology Centre, and we're going to focus on 5 of the very best, as well as showing some of the most memorable moments that have decided world championships over the years.
Unbelievable what he has achieved.
It's Villeneuve. Head off. That's Mansell. Oh, Alfred Schumacher. Head off. Meets Piquet. Wow, win. Over the line goes the world champion. He wins the world championship. He is absolutely beside himself with joy. And look at that. You can see his exultation. And he's going to win. He's going through. Oh, yes.
No less than 27 championships have been decided at the final race, and there have been some fantastic fights. In 1981 and 83, Brazil's Nelson Piquet was behind in the championship heading into the final races, but won them both. First, Piquet pipped Carlos Reutemann to the title in Las Vegas, crossing the line barely conscious due to the searing heat, and then claiming his second world championship in South Africa 2 years later, when championship leader Alain Prost had to retire with a turbo failure at Kyalami.
It's a slow pit stop and out gets Prost. Sensation, Alain Prost, the world champion designate when this race began, gets out of his Renault and retires from the South African Grand Prix. And here comes Piquet. Over the line goes the world champion of 1983, Nelson Piquet, pounding the steering wheel of his Brabham BMW with sheer exultation, and rightly so.
Prost missed out again in 1984 when his dominance of the final round in Portugal just wasn't enough to win the championship, as his McLaren teammate Niki Lauda fought his way up from 11th on the grid to finish second and claim the title by just half a point, the smallest winning margin in the history of Formula One. Prost, known as the Professor for his calm and intelligent approach to motor racing, did win the championship at Brands Hatch in 1985, but it was the following year that saw one of the most dramatic climaxes to the season ever, with Prost one of 3 drivers in with a chance of taking the crown. But it was Williams' Nigel Mansell, Red 5, that was the red-hot favourite. Steve Ryder sets the scene.
Good evening. The hopes of British motorsport, 10 years without a Formula One world champion, seem to have been born solely by Nigel Mansell in recent weeks. His domination of the latter half of the season suggested that at last we might have found a successor to James Hunt, our last world champion back in 1976. But there were 2 very tough opponents remaining in this last race for the top prize in motorsport. Mansell had a 6-point lead over the defending champion Alain Prost and a 7-point lead over his Williams teammate Nelson Piquet. But both Piquet and Prost had to win and rely on Mansell's failure to take the title. Well, Mansell's pole position dispelled all the doubts after his disappointing result in Mexico. Nelson Piquet was second fastest. He would share the front row with Mansell. Prost on the second row of the grid, 4th fastest. He was alongside the Lotus of Ayrton Senna, René Arnoux and the Mexico winner Gerhard Berger on the 3rd row, and on the 4th row, Keke Rosberg, the winner of last year's inaugural Adelaide race, alongside Philippe Alliot. The other British drivers, Johnny Dumfries in the second Lotus was 14th with a camera aboard the car. Martin Brundle 16th in the Tyrrell, Derek Warwick in the Brabham 20th, and Jonathan Palmer in the Zaxpeed 21st. So our race commentators are James Hunt and Murray Walker.
This is absolutely the critical moment of the race. Nelson, Piquet and Mansell together. And it's go, and a superb start from Nigel Mansell. Senna goes through to second place ahead of Piquet. The two McLarens slot in behind them into the chicane. Is anybody going to go off this year? It looks to me as though they're bunching up well and getting through. No problems on the chicane, and Senna is challenging for the start, and he goes through and he takes the lead. Senna takes the lead on the right-hander at Wakefield Turn. Now up to East Terrace Bend, the left-hander. It's Senna, Mansell, Piquet, and the McLaren going through ahead of the Williams and coming towards us. It is Ayrton Senna in the lead. It is Piquet second. It is Rosberg in third position. Mansell is down to fourth position. Well, there's a turn up for the book because Nigel Mansell has lost his lead and Gerhard Berger is well up. And look at the way that the first three are breaking away. Senna, the Williams and the McLaren absolutely together, and Piquet going through and trying to take Senna. One Brazilian passes another, and we've got a third leader before even one lap has been completed. And look at that, Keke Rosberg in front of Nelson Piquet. So Rosberg leads the Australian Grand Prix, and that's the first time he's been at the front of a Grand Prix since he left the Williams Honda team. If Prost can get past Piquet, he could then close up on his teammate Keke Rosberg, who might well get an order to move over and let Prost through. Ayrton Senna is still fifth. Stefan Johansson again in the points in the Ferrari, unlike his teammate Michele Alboreto. And Johansson has been fired. What a travesty of justice. In seventh position, Philippe Strait. Eighth, Riccardo Patrese. Ninth, Gerhard Berger. And off speeds Piquet. Wowee! Now, Piquet goes off. Prost goes through. Now we have the two McLarens, first and second. Rosberg leads and Prost is second. This could change the race. Piquet is certainly going. He's certainly intending to have second place, and he takes it. And Nigel Mansell didn't fight there. I think, as James has suggested, Nigel Mansell is using every ounce of his considerable intelligence, acumen and experience and letting Piquet go through. Rosberg out! Keke Rosberg is out of the Australian Grand Prix. If this isn't a sensation, I would like to know what is. The man who won last year has retired in the lead. He must be bitterly disappointed, and now the World Championship is indeed wide open. There's the reason. Look at the flapping right rear Goodyear on Keke Rosberg's McLaren. A smashed tyre, and out of the race goes the Finn.
And that means that Nigel Mansell only has to finish now to be world champion. And as we were watching that, Prost has got past Mansell there. You just saw him going around the hairpin in the background. There is Nelson Piquet. So Piquet leads the race, but third place is good enough for Mansell. Mansell can now afford to slow right down and just finish. He is miles ahead of Stefan Johansson, who's in fourth place. So he really doesn't need to hurry.
Yeah, and a word of consolation, commiseration, sympathy, and all the other appropriate words for Keke Rosberg. He had driven an immaculate last race for the McLaren team, last race in his Grand Prix career, leading by half a minute, only to have victory snatched from his hands, just as Niki Lauda did last year in the McLaren. What bitter, bitter disappointment for him. He may have been prepared to move over. And look at that! Out that, and colossally, that's Mansell. That is Nigel Mansell, and the car absolutely shattered. He's fighting for control, and you can see what's happened. Mansell is out of the race. Now, this could change and will change the World Championship.
What an absolute tragedy for Mansell. Obviously, the tyres went at almost the same time as Keke Rosberg, so there's a wear problem. Piquet must be made aware of that by radio, because it means he, with his tyres, will have been here. We're going to see what happened again, and that's an absolute tragedy, because that means that poor Mansell. That is terrible at the last moment, because well, it could still happen to Nelson Piquet. That was pretty dramatic, and Mansell did pretty well to hold on to the car and keep it straight then.
But at the present moment, Nelson Piquet is in a World Championship and race-winning situation and would score 72 points, and into the pits goes the Williams.
And I wouldn't be at all surprised if his team didn't call him in, because they will have seen on a TV monitor that two people have lost these tyres. Nelson was running the same tyres, and so Prost is now a favourite to win the World Championship. If he can hold on, I don't remember that Prost has already changed tyres quite a long time ago, so Prost now leads the Australian Grand Prix and, at the moment, the World Championship on points if he can hold on.
And he takes the checkered flag. He wins the Australian Grand Prix. He wins the World Championship of 1986. Absolute euphoria in the McLaren pit, and Alain Prost stops immediately. I wonder if that means he was so low on fuel that he had to stop. Look at him, he can hardly believe it himself.
So Prost claimed his second championship, and Mansell lost the title by just 2 points. I was naturally sorry to see my friend Nigel lose out through no fault of his own, but have to confess that I felt rather smug after the race, because I'd prophesied on Australian TV that Prost would win the race and the championship. When I interviewed Alain after he'd done so, he told me that he'd seen my piece in the hotel room and he thought I was a genius. But actually, I'd only said it to be different about what seemed to be a Mansell certainty. Nigel's heartbreak would be repeated in 1987 after a big crash during qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix, which left him with a spinal concussion, and he was unable to oppose Piquet, who duly claimed his third World Championship. And it was at Suzuka where the title would be decided during the next 4 seasons, with Ayrton Senna winning his first title in 1988 after stalling on the grid and fighting his way back through the field to claim an emotional win. But it was the penultimate race of the season in 1989 that's remembered as one of the most dramatic days in the history of the sport. The fight between two of the very best, driving this beautiful Honda V10 powered MP4/5 McLaren. Tension between the McLaren teammates, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, was at boiling point, and Prost already had a contract to leave the team and drive for Ferrari. The Frenchman had a 16-point advantage, meaning Senna had to beat his great rival to take the fight to the final race in Australia, and he duly qualified in pole position, over a second and a half quicker than Prost.
And they get away very quickly indeed, extremely quickly, and a beautiful start by Alain Prost, who goes into the lead with Berger coming up behind Senna. So it is Prost leading, Senna second, Berger in third position, Alessandro Nannini up in the fourth place.
And believe you me, we have very, very high emotions running in both those cockpits. The drivers, it wouldn't be unreasonable to say that they hate each other. And on that basis, to be racing at those speeds at a further and rather unnecessary dimension, to have heavy emotional feelings of antipathy towards each other, but that is the situation. It also makes the pressure much greater for Prost with his lead. His dislike for Senna makes him much more twitchy and much more inclined, if possible, to make a mistake. And an anxious McLaren team there, and Senna again closer than ever before.
This is Alain Prost's 150th Grand Prix, so he has had experience of just about every situation, including this one. The situation of being in the lead with the second place man treading on his rear wheels almost, and having to resist that pressure, keep his racing line, not go wide, not leave an opportunity and a door open through which Senna would be like a flash. Now, there are very few cars left on the circuit. There's 14 running now out of the 26 who started. And if Prost comes up to any of them, this is the opportunity that Senna's looking for. And he's going through. Ouch! Oh my goodness, this is fantastic. They meet. This is what we were fearing might happen during the race. And that means to say that Prost has won the World Championship. Alain Prost, World Champion of 1989.
Well, and just look at this, because Ayrton Senna, who can get going again, but he's been pushed, that's outside assistance. And I'm afraid to say that that is all over for Ayrton Senna, and it was his own fault because of the slow corner. He wasn't past Prost, and he went into a gap, and Prost had every right to turn into him there. And I'm afraid that the self-inflicted Senna has got going again. He's back on the track, but he will for sure be disqualified for receiving a push start there.
Well, that is contentious. The rule says that you can be pushed if you are judged to be in a dangerous position. So it could well come down to a steward's decision of some kind, but look at the problems that Senna is going to have with car handling. And now, of course, Alessandro Nannini is very much in the running, and it could be that we're going to see the Benetton Ford winning and a Benetton winning, and Senna is still leading. Senna with this twisted nose cone and very dodgy handling, and it's coming to pieces. He's going to have to come into the pits to have it replaced. He goes off. He's lost downforce, of course, and that dramatically affects adversely the handling of the car. No wings on either side.
Now, will Senna come in to change that nose, or will he try and stay out? He is still leading the race, remember, but of course he really should be disqualified. So he's pushed up and he goes into the pit, so they're going to try putting a new nose on the car, maybe. He's in the pit road, and here is Nannini, who will take over the lead of the race.
Yes, indeed he will, and the question then will be, can Ayrton Senna, with this new nose cone, depending on what the position is, either regain the lead or retain the lead? Well, we're watching now for Nannini. Nannini's in the lead. Alessandro Nannini leads the Japanese Grand Prix as Ayrton Senna leaves the pit lane. And my guess is, and it's very much a guess, that Senna, in the mood that he's in now, on lap 48, will catch and pass lap 49. Can catch and pass Nannini, and then win the World Championship if he wins in Australia. Well, this really is a dramatic ending to the Japanese Grand Prix. Alain Prost out, it doesn't affect his chance. Here's a replay, now let's look. Senna comes up to try and go through on the inside. Prost moves across, takes them both out.
Yes, well, Senna went for a gap that wasn't there. You could see quite clearly that Prost was already turning into the corner. And Senna put himself in an absolutely impossible situation.
Ayrton Senna in the second position, which is absolutely no use at all to him in terms of the World Championship. Now up to Nannini. He's going to try and go through into the left-hander, and this is lap 51. 2 laps to go at the end of this one. Each lap of 3 and through. Now Nannini smokes up. Ayrton Senna leads at the conclusion of lap 51 in this absolutely riveting Japanese Grand Prix with 2 laps to go, notwithstanding the fact that he's gone into Prost, had a new nose cone.
Well, that certainly was a very brave manoeuvre after what had just happened to him a couple of laps ago, but of course he was able to do the same thing to Nannini as he did to Prost, but then Nannini wants to be second. Prost didn't want to be second, had no reason to be second. He comes through to win the race on the road.
And hold on to your hats, Australia, because it could well be that the World Championship is going to be decided at Adelaide in 2 weeks' time. But Ayrton Senna wins in Japan. Is there going to be a steward's inquiry? Alain Prost will have one if he can. But Nannini, just behind Ayrton Senna, in a magnificent finish, takes his highest ever place, second. The two Williams cars of Riccardo Patrese and Thierry Boutsen, third and fourth. Nelson Piquet lapped but fifth. And then, unseen by any of us because of the battle for the lead, Martin Brundle in sixth position. A sensational Japanese Grand Prix, but there was more to come when a joyful Ayrton Senna, believing he had won, learned that he'd been disqualified. Not for being push-started from a dangerous position, that was legal, but for avoiding the chicane after he got going. So, Alessandro Nannini was declared to be the race winner in Japan, which automatically meant that a bitter and indignant Alain Prost had won his third World Championship. But the controversy is far from over. As Nannini and Prost accepted their contentious successes, there came the amazing news that McLaren had appealed against Senna's disqualification, despite the fact that their own man, Alain Prost, who significantly will be driving for Ferrari in 1990, had just become world champion. With that, the latest news here at Suzuka, as the arguing continues, is that subject to appeal, Nannini did win the Japanese Grand Prix and that Alain Prost is world champion.
The appeal failed, but it was certainly a controversial decision. Senna was outraged and humiliated because he thought the head of the FIA, Jean-Marie Balestre, had victimised him by engineering his exclusion on a technicality, failing to rejoin the course where he'd left it. Ayrton certainly deserved to win after an inspired drive, but in my opinion, he caused the collision. So, maybe his penalty was poetic justice. Whatever, the Senna and Prost bitter rivalry reached its peak a year later when once again they started on the front row in Japan. This time it was Prost who needed to beat Senna to keep his championship hopes alive. But Senna hadn't forgotten the events of 12 months earlier. Ayrton qualified quickest, but he was furious after being denied his wish to have pole position moved to the cleaner, grippier side of the circuit. He vowed that Prost wouldn't pass him into the first corner, and that's exactly what happened.
On the left is Ayrton Senna, on the right is Alain Prost, behind Senna is Mansell, behind Prost is Berger, the grid is clear, the lights go! And Senna sprints away, but Alain Prost takes the lead. It's happened. Alain Prost has taken the advantage. Senna is trying to go through on the inside, and it's happened immediately. This is amazing. Senna goes off at the first corner, but what has happened to Prost? He has gone off too. Well, that is amazing, but I fear absolutely predictable.
Yes, and that makes Ayrton Senna world champion this year. So Ayrton Senna now with Prost not finishing the race quite clearly, he's out of his car, stuck in the gravel pit. That, I'm afraid to say, is the end of this year's Drivers' World Championship in favour of Ayrton Senna. There's Prost running back, but it's all over for him.
Prost and Senna's rivalry would come to define that era of Formula One. But after Senna's tragic accident at Imola in 1994, a new star of the sport emerged, Michael Schumacher. The young German had dominated most of the season, but his disqualification from the Belgian Grand Prix and his subsequent two-race ban gave Senna's Williams teammate, Damon Hill, a chance to catch up. Schumacher led by just a single point heading into the 16th and final race of the season in Adelaide. And with the title on a knife edge, both drivers had cracked under pressure and crashed during practice.
Australia is go. Mansell slides away. We're with Hakkinen, Damon Hill on the left. Schumacher leads. Schumacher leads at the first corner. Damon Hill has gone ahead of Nigel Mansell as they go round. Are they all going to get through the chicane? No, Christian Fittipaldi goes over the curb, but mercifully everybody is through the first complex of corners, and Michael Schumacher is leading and already pulling away as Mansell goes off the course and loses at least 2 places. Sean Lacey right up behind him. Mika Hakkinen has passed. There is Damon Hill second. Hakkinen is third. Barrichello is fourth, and Nigel Mansell is down to 5th position. A misjudgment there. Now, this is exactly what Michael Schumacher wants. He's got a clear track in front of him. He's got the nimble, powerful, perfectly balanced Benetton at his command. Behind him, he can see his rival. This is a perfect scenario. And in comes Gerhard Berger. Now, he was 14 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell. It's going to be quite a close run thing before Nigel Mansell goes through, because it's a very short pit lane here, and Berger has come in. He's going to take about 9 or 10 seconds for this refueling stop, and Mansell has yet to go through. He's through. Now look for Berger. It's going to be tremendously close for 3rd position. Mansell is there. Mansell is through. Now, so he's got that much of a lead as you look for the red Ferrari of Gerhard Berger. There it is now in 4th position. And Gerhard, with his teammate Lacey behind him in 5th position and visually behind him, is of course on comparatively cold tires, whereas Lacey and Mansell are not.
That looks, Schumacher's off. Schumacher's lost time.
Yeah.
Hill goes by.
Oh, out goes Schumacher. The German is out of the Australian Grand Prix, and Damon Hill only has to keep going to be world champion of 1994, but can he keep going? Because he hit Schumacher's car, and if Damon Hill has to retire and you see smoke pouring off the wheel, that will mean that Schumacher will be world champion. What an incredible development. Schumacher gets underneath the protective barrier. Now you can see Damon Hill's right front wheel is canting right over. He's got a puncture in the front left.
Yes, and I think hopefully, no, he's bent his wishbone as well. We can see it on the onboard camera there. He's got a bent left front suspension, but what needs to happen now, clearly Schumacher is out. The question is, can they repair Hill's car? Can he get out? And can he get into the top 6 and get a point, or get 2 points? In fact, he needs a 5th, but it's not looking good. This, we didn't see what happened. I'd like to see, here we are. Now we are in the Wakefield. Schumacher turns into the left. He's turning into the left. He gets too sideways. He goes off. Schumacher's made the mistake. He hits the wall. He's damaged his own car. And then he comes back to the left. And then he blocks the inside on the right. Damon is coming in. Now that's bad from Schumacher. Schumacher should have known his car was damaged. Damon had the line. I'm afraid that is a fundamental mistake, I believe, from Michael Schumacher at a real moment of crisis.
And there will be people, of course, who say, as we see this replay of Schumacher going into the wall, that was a desperate manoeuvre by Schumacher to stop Damon Hill winning the championship. Into the wall he goes. Now the question is, can Damon Hill get in and have his car repaired? You see the front left wheel is locked up. Now Nigel Mansell is going to go through in the lead, but he was 54 seconds behind the leaders. Damon obviously extremely worried. The question is, how long is it going to take them to repair whatever damage there was? You see he's been in the pits for about 16 seconds now. And Mansell has gone through, Berger has gone through, Lacey has gone through, Hakkinen has gone through.
And Patrick Head there's looking at that left front wishbone. Hill shaking his head. He knows in his heart of hearts that it is all over. Now here's some on board from Damon Hill. Let's have a look. We're into the Westfield bends. Now let's look for Schumacher. Schumacher there has already had his moment. There he is, bouncing off the right-hand wall. Schumacher deflecting back. Schumacher going wide. Damon seeing him slow. Damon goes for the inside there, and now that really should have been. Now look at that. Schumacher cuts across, rides over the wheels. The left rear wheel of Schumacher hits Damon's left front. That should have been Damon's corner, even disregarding anything else in my book.
As Damon Hill retires from the Australian Grand Prix, and the 1994 World Championship has been won, a lot of people will say by default, by Michael Schumacher, as the Benetton team congratulate each other. They know that their man has won the World Championship, but he doesn't, because he's still stuck behind the wire. Well, an amazing development. Schumacher would not want to have won the World Championship that way, I am utterly sure. With a heartbroken Damon Hill watching the monitor, this is bitter gall. He's won 6 races this year. If he could have just finished 2 points ahead of Michael Schumacher, he would have been world champion in only his second full season of Grand Prix racing. Michael Schumacher, scarcely able to believe his luck, is, I think, unashamedly weeping tears of joy and happiness at the knowledge that after a very grueling season, when his team has been accused of cheating, has won the World Championship.
But what a shame that it could not have gone the way it should have done, with Damon looking so strong, but Schumacher still just ahead all the way to the flag.
Nigel Mansell is almost home and dry to win the 1994 Australian Grand Prix, and Nigel Mansell wins in Australia. Fantastic! Gerhard Berger second in the Ferrari, and Nigel, there it is, the master is back.
I thought that it was going to be difficult to pass him because I'd done enough laps behind him to realise that there was very little between us, and all I could do was hope for maybe a moment in traffic and stuff. But I mean, when you see him go onto the grass and come back onto the track, you realise that that could be the one time in the entire race when you've got a chance to get past, and I thought I had a good opportunity there. But looking back, I've seen the replay now after the race, and I realise that his car actually was damaged, and in hindsight, of course, if I'd stayed where I was, he would have been out. And I could be champion, but I don't want to spend too long thinking about things like that. I'm going to have to just come back next year and try and become world champion all again.
I lost it over the bump. The car came sideways and hit a little bit the wall, and then by sudden the car felt very funny and out of control a bit. And the next I noticed that I was in the air looking down to Damon, but I was already up in the air. And it was strange. Suddenly I was stuck in the wall. I wasn't sure if I'm gonna go and turn over, and I wasn't sure what is gonna happen to Damon. So it was a strange situation. I'd rather finish that race in first position and win it by this, but that's racing.
Well, from all your countless British fans, thank you for your courtesy and cheerfulness all season. You're a great champion.
Thank you very much. It's nice to hear this from you. Thank you.
A very unsatisfactory ending to a truly dramatic season, with Schumacher being accused of dirty driving by deliberately taking Damon out. Now, people accuse me of being a naive old fool, but I've always believed that the collision was caused by Schumacher instinctively trying to regain the racing line to block Damon rather than malice aforethought. And I still do. But not many people agree with me. It was bitter disappointment for Damon Hill, but he'd become champion 2 years later, when, leading from start to finish in Japan, he beat his Williams teammate, Canadian rookie Jacques Villeneuve, to the title. It was an emotional moment for me, as I'd seen Damon's father, Graham Hill, win 2 world championships, and I'd known Damon as he grew up to emulate his father.
That is his wife, Georgie. She's seeing her husband become world champion. Now she's seeing him win the Japanese Grand Prix because he is almost home. This is something that many people didn't think could possibly happen today. They thought Damon would drive a cautious race, but he fought. He fought from second on the grid. He passed Jacques Villeneuve. He took the lead. He stayed there. And Damon Hill exits the chicane and wins the Japanese Grand Prix. And I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.
I really am, for once, almost at a loss for words. What about that?
It's just so fantastic. I can't tell you, Murray. I was driving along and I could hear you in my head. I was, there it goes, you know, Jack's out, Murray's off, and you know, it was quite a difficult job to concentrate after I heard that Jack was out. But I wanted to win the race, you know, because I knew that was the best way to finish.
Hill's success was Villeneuve's disappointment, but the man in the baggy race suit didn't have to wait long to win his world championship. In 1997, he was 1 point behind race leader Schumacher and needed to beat him at Jerez.
Look how close it is. First, second and third absolutely together. Jacques Villeneuve looking for a way past the Ferrari as up to, I think it's one of the Jordans, comes Michael Schumacher. He's going to be on it very shortly.
Well, again, Michael Schumacher's very slow, 1:25.9 on that last lap. I wonder if he's got something like a slow puncture or some kind of gear shift problem, because I think that will cause Villeneuve a problem.
Michael Schumacher out. Now, this is a replay of the World Championship in 1994 when Schumacher and Hill had a coming together. And if Villeneuve can just keep going in the points, he's won the World Championship of 1997, because out of the race goes Michael Schumacher. He retires on lap 48.
Now we're going to see from Michael Schumacher's car, Villeneuve, watch him slice up the inside. Now watch his hands. Does Schuey turn in? Well, he's turning into the corner, but his rear wheel may have just done enough damage to knock Villeneuve's car out of the race. Villeneuve lapping 5 seconds a lap slow. There's the beached Ferrari of Michael Schumacher.
What do you think? Mika Häkkinen can see that victory, beckoning him. Look how close it is.
He's got two chances, a small one into the Ayrton Senna chicane, and then a big last gasp dive into the last corner. He knows Villeneuve will jump out of the way if he as much as looks at his rear wheel.
And he does it.
He's let him through.
Häkkinen is going to win. Häkkinen is going to win his first Grand Prix in his long and meritorious career. He's coming up to the last corner. Häkkinen is going to win the European Grand Prix. David Coulthard goes second, and Jacques Villeneuve second settles for third place and the World Championship of 1997. Wow!
And while the tires were new, that's when I knew I had to make my move, and I went for it. Surprised him a little bit, and when I was on the inside of him, he decided to turn in on me. But luckily, he's the only one that went off, so his plan didn't work.
I braked on the maximum, and he braked even later, which, as I said, with this braking point, I wouldn't have made the corner, and he wouldn't have made the corner. So he used me a little bit as a braking on top. But, well, as I said before, I probably wouldn't have done anything different.
Schumacher was stripped of second place in the championship and later admitted it was the one thing about his Formula One career that he most regretted. And there was more bad news for Schumacher the following year. Heading to Japan with a 4-point deficit to McLaren's Mika Häkkinen, he took pole but stalled on the grid, and he was forced to start the race from the back. Despite a magnificent charge, including passing 10 cars on the opening lap, it was all in vain as a puncture put paid to his chances on lap 31. Häkkinen duly won the race and the championship, and the Flying Finn would do the same again in 1999, taking the title from Alstom Eddie Irvine with a scintillating performance to claim a second successive World Championship. The following years, though, were all about Schumacher, as the Ferrari driver broke record after record in claiming 5 of his 7 world titles consecutively between 2000 and 2004. The man that broke Schumacher's streak was Fernando Alonso, who claimed both his world championships to date in Brazil in 2005 and 2006. Alonso switched to McLaren for 2007, but trailed his rookie teammate Lewis Hamilton heading into the final race in Sao Paulo with Ferrari's Kimi Raikkonen 7 points adrift. Hamilton was squeezed at the start and dropped further down the order after going off while trying to pass Alonso. The Englishman's chances of securing the title were scuppered once and for all by a gearbox problem that dropped him way down the order. He fought back to finish 7th, but it wasn't enough. His teammate could have won the title too, but Alonso couldn't match the pace of the front-running Ferraris, leaving Raikkonen as the unlikely victor.
Kimi Raikkonen wins the Brazilian Grand Prix, his first victory here, the 15th of his career, and by no doubt the most important. Massa finishes in second place. Alonso is going to come in third, and the dream is over for Lewis Hamilton.
Felipe Massa had relinquished his chances of a home win so Raikkonen could win the title. But 12 months later, it was the Brazilian himself who was in with a chance against Hamilton, who again started as favourite, needing to finish 5th or higher to win the title. With the atmosphere already highly charged and the crowd desperate to see a first Brazilian world champion since Senna in 1991, a storm just moments before the race delayed the start and added to the tension, ahead of what was perhaps the most exciting finish to a Grand Prix season in history.
So the 2008 Formula One World Championship will be decided here, right now. Massa on the left, Trulli on the right. Look out for Hamilton on the pit wall side. It's a cautious getaway from Hamilton. He's running down. Raikkonen is in front of him, and you can see that Alonso has not been able to make ground on him. Vettel isn't going to take any chances. Kovalainen nursemates his teammate through and then shuts the door on Vettel, and Hamilton is safely through turn one. Massa is away and clear, and we've got an accident in the back, and that's not David Coulthard, is it? Surely that distinctive livery for his final Grand Prix. I do believe David Coulthard, as Vettel gets past Kovalainen and has a crack at Lewis Hamilton. I believe Coulthard is possibly out of this Grand Prix. Here's the view from Coulthard's onboard camera. See how busy it is through there. He gets a tap from behind, I believe, from Jenson Button, is it?
I think it was Nakajima who just ran into the back of him. It was quite clearly a whack.
There is Luis Massa, the father of Felipe Massa, who took on extra jobs to pay for his son's racing. The spots of rain begin to fall on the camera lenses, and we'll look for the first signs of the handling and grip beginning to go away from the cars on the racetrack. Here comes Hamilton, just 8 laps to go in this Grand Prix.
0.6 of a second ahead of Vettel. Vettel beginning to push again, and Hamilton's not going to fancy much of that if he starts getting rain streaming off his visor at 190 miles an hour. It always looks like it's raining more than it is. Nick Hamilton out in the pit lane to check it out for himself, and I don't know what he can see, but his brother can see Sebastian Vettel coming at him. How much tension do you need? Those towards the back of the field are starting to pit. There it is. They're all going to have to come in for the intermediate, surely. What a difficult decision for Massa and Hamilton.
A championship hangs on it. The lap times at the moment are steady. They haven't gone off yet. They're still lapping in the high 114s as Vettel has a look at Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton defends it this time. Will he continue to defend it? Looks to me like Vettel desperately wants to get past him. We know how good he is on a damp track, and Hamilton is getting into this fight. He wants to resist Vettel. Does he need to? No. Does he want to? Yes. He's 4th. 5th would give him the title. And the rain begins to fall harder as Giancarlo Fisichella struggles for grip in front of him on the Force India. And Lewis Hamilton is walking the tightrope here at Interlagos.
Right, intermediate time. Surely it's intermediate time. Because if they go past the pits and it starts to come down too heavily, they've got, it's intermediate time is here.
The advantage for Hamilton is that Massa's ahead of him on the racetrack. That's the advantage, so he doesn't have to make the first call. It's Ferrari that will make the first call, and they do it with Raikkonen, not with Massa. Interesting. Alonso pits from second. What is Hamilton going to do? Is he just going to cover Massa? I guess that's what he is going to do. No, he's coming in.
He's got to come in. There's no point taking the risk, especially now that the two in front of him have done that.
So does Vettel, critically.
What is Glock and co going to do? If they manage to get to the end, then without losing any pace, now Hamilton needs it to rain hard.
He certainly does. This is amazing. The final stages of this World Championship. Just 5 laps to go, and nerves are jangling. David Ryan there, the veteran team manager of McLaren. He's seen a few championship fights, but this is pure drama at Interlagos. Where is Hamilton going to rejoin? That is one of the BMWs going through. Vettel critically, who was racing him for position. And it's the back marker, Robert Kubica. Or is he still a back marker? Has he played himself in a position by... No, he's a back marker. In comes the race leader, Felipe Massa. a lap later than Hamilton. You can see the flashbulbs going off. It's going dark here at Interlagos.
But it's got to rain hard now for these guys. Otherwise, for Hamilton, it's got to rain hard. Otherwise, Glock and Trulli and co are going to be on them.
3 to go in what has been a truly dramatic World Championship. Is Vettel going to spoil Hamilton's party?
Hamilton's got a bunch of traffic ahead of him. There is some of it. The Force India get out of the way because they're coming through. And Hamilton's gone wide.
Oh my goodness me, Vettel is now right with him. 2 to go. Hamilton is forced his way through. Here comes Kubica, and he passes. He passes Vettel. That's delayed Vettel a little bit. And Kubica is, well, it's a bit naughty.
Kubica's unlapped himself.
He's a lap down. He's unlapping himself. He would argue he's entitled to do that. Hamilton lets him through. So he's got grip, but Hamilton's lost it. Oh my goodness me! Vettel's taken the place, and that could cost Hamilton the World Championship.
Oh, it's
now raining hard, and that means Glock is going to be in trouble. He's in 4th place, and with just 2 laps to go, the question now is, can Timo Glock in the Toyota keep it on the island? If he cannot, then Hamilton might have a chance of getting the title back. At the moment, 6th will not do it for him.
Can you believe it? Right now, it's all down to whether Glock can handle the rain. And let's look at Glock's sector times. They're fine. Sector 1 is fine. Hamilton is not going to get the championship right now. If it doesn't rain harder, it's all about Glock now. Or can he get back at Vettel? And he's held up there behind the Honda.
Well, he's got nothing to lose now, Hamilton, in many ways. I mean, he'll be monitoring the Glock situation. He just doesn't seem to have any grip, even though he's got the right tyres on. Vettel is driving away from him. And we're entering the last lap shortly. Race leader Felipe Massa has just started the last lap. It's all about whether Hamilton wants it, whether he feels he can get back on the tail. The frustration must be colossal. He can see the back of that Toro Rosso, and that is the situation. Hamilton and Massa would be tied on points, but by virtue of the extra win for Massa, it would give the Brazilian driver the World Championship, and only 1 lap remains. Glock's sector times are perfectly healthy on the dry tyre. He's doing fine, and the championship is slipping away from Lewis Hamilton.
Right, let's Glock's done a 1:28, but he's 15 seconds clear of them. So Glock can tiptoe around the last lap and get the job done. Hamilton then has got to have a major attack on Vettel. Has he got the pace to do that?
And of course Vettel is powered by the Ferrari engine, so he is highly motivated. And you can see that the back of Vettel's car swirling away. Hamilton just doesn't seem to have the pace when it matters. He needs 5th or better to win the World Championship. He is currently 6th, and he runs one up late on the braking. He just needs now some luck to intervene. I said at the beginning it would come down to luck, and that's exactly what's happened. He had it all under control in the dry conditions, and in these conditions it's all about these last few everything he needed to do, and we wait now to find out who will be the world champion of 2008. Can Hamilton do anything? Can he run it up the inside of Vettel? Only a few corners to go now, and desperation starts to creep in for Lewis Hamilton.
Raikkonen's 3rd.
Realised that he celebrated a little bit too early, and Nicole Scherzinger, the girlfriend of Lewis Hamilton, hugs Aki Hintsa, his head doctor. You will never see a more dramatic conclusion to any motor race, let alone a Grand Prix, than that. And the result of it all is that in the most harem-squarum way possible, he doesn't make it easy for himself, does he? Lewis Hamilton is the world champion.
Unbelievable.
Guys, I'm speechless. But you guys did a fantastic job all season, and you deserve this. So this is for you and to my family. Thank you for all supporting me and believing in me. You're the best.
What an incredible finish. Felipe thought he was world champion for about 40 seconds before Lewis dramatically claimed the crown thanks to a masterly drive and being on the right tyres. Massa accepted his personal tragedy with great dignity, but he couldn't hold back the tears on the podium as below him in the McLaren pit they celebrated a first driver's title in 9 years. The climax to the season this year is going to be in Abu Dhabi, as it was in 2010, when for the first time, 4 drivers, Fernando Alonso, Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton, all went into the final race with a chance of becoming world champion. Despite the tension, the race itself wasn't a classic, as Alonso and Webber both got stuck in the midfield, while Vettel drove masterfully to become the sport's youngest ever world champion.
Oh, thank you, boys. Unbelievable. Thank you, I love you. I'm emotional.
2 years later, there was another classic though, as Alonso could still get the job done going to the final round in Brazil, as he and Vettel fought for a 3rd world championship. Interlagos played host to another thrilling race in mixed conditions, with Vettel just needing to finish in the points. But it all went wrong right at the start for the young German.
Lights out, away we go, and Hamilton versus Button off the front row. Vettel away slowly, Webber protected. Great start by Massa. Massa's up to 2nd almost. He's trying to get past Button, and Alonso up to 4th, almost runs into the McLaren in front of him. Webber though forces his way past Alonso, but Vettel has dropped right back into the pack. Wow, we have a race on our hands. Vettel did not get away at all well there, and just everybody trying to check out conditions. Hamilton leads. Look at Felipe Massa into 2nd there, and off goes Raikkonen. Raikkonen's off, but he gets back on again.
Well, nearly ran into the back of...
oh, we've got action.
That's a
It's
red
Vettel.
goal. It's Vettel.
It's
He's
Vettel.
been hit. I thought he almost ran into the back of him, but he did. He's made contact.
Down at turn 4. How much damage is on the Red Bull? What drama here on the first lap in Brazil? Championship contender Sebastian Vettel has been hit. How much damage we don't know yet. Alonso is still running, but he's down in 5th place.
Damage to
Alonso.
the floor, Ben. He's got the left side of the car is damaged, so he's been hit on that left side.
Okay, someone hit me. I'm coming back. I think I have done it.
He has damage. Now let's see if we can find out what happened down there. He had Di Resta behind him, and big lock-up from the Lotus then, but that wasn't the incident. It was Senna that hit the side of the Red Bull. Look at the accident damage to Senna's car.
Incredible as Vettel just reversed himself down the hill out of turn 4, but he's a little bit wide on turn in, but nonetheless that's a clear whack. He gets hit there by the Williams on the side of the car. That's what's done the damage to the side of the floor, and Fernando Alonso's girlfriend, excited, happy, wants to burst into tears, all of the emotions.
Here comes Webber trying to get past the Ferrari, moves up to the outside on the approach to the first corner. Up front the McLaren comes Alonso down the inside. Alonso moves up into 3rd place, which is where he needs to be if Vettel gets no points here today. Up front Hamilton leads from Button, Alonso's 3rd.
Sebastian, there's visible damage, but stay out to see how the car behaves. We cannot fix it. It's not front wing. We cannot fix the damage.
Vettel is up to 17th now, so we'll be keeping a close eye on him.
Alonso's gone wide.
Alonso's off. Alonso's gone wide. Hulkenberg's gone past, and it might allow Webber through, but I don't think so yet. But he's lost momentum.
But it will, Ben, on the run down into turn 4. Sorry to come over you there, but Webber's going to carry that speed. Alonso's gone defensive. The Red Bulls and the Ferrari sandwich.
Wow, Alonso on the inside now. Can he hold off Webber? Looks like he's got just enough speed to do so. He has fended off Mark Webber.
Adrian Newey taking a look at the rear of the car to see where the damage is. That's clearly a photograph that's been taken. It's been printed out, given to him, so he can try and evaluate how that might affect the car. You can see very clearly the damage to the left side of the floor, and he's actually exposed the exhaust system on the car as well, as a piece of the carbon has been removed.
Look at Hulkenberg challenging Hamilton for the lead again. Hulkenberg's going to have a go down the inside. Hamilton locks up. Nico Hulkenberg trying to reach. Oh,
and
no! Oh, they've made contact. Hamilton and Hulkenberg. And now that's going to be Button leading and Alonso in 2nd place. My goodness, Hulkenberg trying to rejoin. How did it go wrong? How did it all go? Look at the damage. Hamilton's final race at McLaren ends with a damaged car, the left front folded up over into the chassis. We're on board Vettel, and he's right behind Michael Schumacher now.
And here comes the pass into turn 4. Does Michael see him? Well, if he does, and it's difficult when you have spray, of course, but I'm sure he's aware that he's got Vettel behind him. The team would have told him, and Michael pulls over.
Michael Schumacher.
His gift in his last race is he doesn't put up any resistance at all to his young German friend. Had a crash. Now,
Paul de Resta out of the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Will this be a safety car? This is in the last sector of the lap. That's the pit in there. So they're going to have to put safety car out, and they have. But he's lost control in that final sector.
He's lost it and clouted the wall. We've seen people crash up there before, but the big story now is that Sebastian Vettel is the 2012 Formula One World Champion, surely because they are behind safety car, and it is going to be Jenson Button to come home for his 15th career victory, the 182nd McLaren win in Formula One. Second place goes to Alonso. Massa finishes third. But with sixth place, Sebastian Vettel is the 2012 Formula One World Champion. He is the youngest ever 3 times world champion and only the 3rd driver in history to have taken 3 titles in a row. Red Bull have done it. Constructors and drivers' titles have gone their way. And the 7 times world champion, so passing on the mantle to Sebastian Vettel, now the 3 times world champion. Lovely shots.
With a great recovery in a damaged car from his lap 1 debacle, Vettel was now the youngest ever triple world champion. But bitter gall for Fernando Alonso, just 3 points behind after 19 worldwide races. The second time in 3 years he'd had to give best to Sebastian. So, there we have it. A selection of thrilling finales to the World Championship. And there's every prospect that this year's climax between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg at Abu Dhabi with double points is going to be another nail-biting drama. Because, remember, anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does.